In what's likely the start of a trend on a state-by-state basis. I wish I could say nationwide, but won't be nationwide due to, well, the politics of it. But for drivers' general safety, this is a great thing to see. Oklahoma bill pushes for English proficiency for CDL drivers, restricts B1 and B2 visa holders from operating commercial vehicles. The reason this is so good, and we're going to get a little bit into this, is that in 2016, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration issued a memorandum instructing enforcement arms to not take drivers who failed English language proficiency exams or tests out of service. This bill forbids them from operating on Oklahoma roads. As we go down, we find that the CDL requirements, SB 20, would require that commercial vehicle operators in Oklahoma possess a valid commercial driver's license issued by a state, territory, or possession of the United States, the District of Columbia, or the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, or a valid commercial driver's license issued by a state, territory, district, or province of Canada or Mexico, and a valid work visa. Drivers would be required to carry a physical copy of their license and proof of citizenship of the country it was issued. This talks about the B1 and B2 holders. Detractors have criticized the legislation in part because the original text of the bill dealt with on-road use of golf carts and utility vehicles, with the CDL language provisions added as amendments later. Lawmakers have argued that the bill is bad for Oklahoma businesses and could cause trucking companies to drive around rather than through the state. Here's one of the most important parts of this. Oklahoma is not the only state cracking down on language requirements and non-citizen commercial vehicle drivers. Arkansas Act 604 was signed into law April 14, 2025, requiring English language proficiency for commercial drivers, making it a crime to present a fake CDL, and requiring U.S. work authorization for truck drivers operating with valid foreign-issued commercial driver's licenses. In the memorandum, and this is in the last days of the Obama administration, January 15th, 2016, U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Policy. If a driver can communicate sufficiently to complete the inspection or investigation, he or she should not be cited for violations. If the driver cannot read, write, or speak English, but can communicate sufficiently with the inspector, he or she should not be cited for violation 391.11, which would be failure to understand and be proficient in English. And this would thus have, at that time, taken you off the road. So in the last days of the Obama administration, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration made it perfectly legal for people who cannot read the English language to drive trucks, commercial trucks, on American roads with American commuters and American drivers. This is one of the most irresponsible things that you could possibly do. I can't believe that in Mexico, it would be allowed for an American CDL driver who cannot read or be proficient in Spanish to be pulled over and fail a Spanish proficiency test and then be allowed on the road. I don't know this for a fact. Please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I love being corrected because then I become correct. But this seems ridiculous. Talk about a safety issue. If you cannot even read the English language in a country where, sorry, Our street signs and our highway signs are not bilingual. If you're in Quebec and you speak French, you've been taught some English. But if you come into the United States and you cannot read the English language, you should not be driving a semi-truck. Equally, if you cannot read the French language and you go into Quebec and you fail a French language proficiency, you should not be allowed on Quebec's roads. Now, I don't know what the Canadian regulations are for this, but general public safety says that you should not be driving around in a vehicle that can weigh over 75,000 pounds at 65 miles an hour if you can't even read the sign to tell you what the speed is. This feels like common sense. And in the last days of the Obama administration, apparently common sense was not a common virtue. As we go back to that memorandum real quick, it's a shame that the incoming administration wasn't able to do something about this, because this will be done on a state-by-state basis. You will have mostly red states adopt very similar laws, and you'll have mostly blue states who I wouldn't be surprised were to adopt the opposite of this, basically adopting this memorandum as their law in one form or another. I live in Minnesota. That sure the hell doesn't make me feel any safer. If you're in California or any blue state, I'm pretty sure that you should feel a little less safe today. If you're in Oklahoma, Arkansas, or any number of the red states that are going to follow up on this legislation, congratulations. Congratulations. This is absolutely something that should be done nationwide. I feel it's in the administration's best interest to rescind this memorandum and move forward with stringent enforcement of this law. This in itself would probably take care of a couple of illegals up here. Not a lot, because most of them will be driving with a CDL and are on work permits and visas, but you may weed some out. At the very least, you're going to get some people who take it upon themselves to learn the language, at least how to read it from time to time. Again, this feels negligence on the highest order that this memorandum of 2016 would have even been allowed. So hopefully the administration gets a hold of this story and moves forward with adopting, first rescinding that memorandum, and secondly adopting a law very similar to this Oklahoma and Arkansas law. Let's get it passed through Congress and get it on the president's desk. Americans' safety is at stake. I've seen what happens when a big rig hits a car. It's not pretty. I do drive for a living. I'm not a professional driver like a CDL holder, but I do have many a mile underneath my wheels. And I've seen some pretty gruesome things in my time. And one of the first terrible things I saw was a semi-truck and a vehicle. The semi-truck didn't lose. Let's put it that way. And it was completely the vehicle's fault, by the way. I was sitting at the intersection and saw it happen. It was very unfortunate. It was up in St. Cloud at the intersection of Highway 15 and 23. They were coming through with a windmill turbine blade. The state patrol had the road all blocked off, and she ignored it, and whammy, it was ugly. And that was with a driver who could understand the English language, with police escort. Now we're talking about drivers who can't even read the English language and would do everything in their power to avoid a police escort. So, I hope you liked this video. If you did, hit the like. Maybe you'll subscribe. Share it with a friend. Let them know that this Oklahoma bill, pushing for English proficiency for CDL drivers, this needs to be something picked up by the administration. The rescinding of the memorandum of 2016 forbidding the enforcement of English proficiency laws needs to be rescinded, and the Oklahoma law, or similar to it, needs to be put in front of Congress and made the law of the land. Thank you.